morning, friends. Welcome back to the lecture series International Business Environment, International Business Dynamic. Today, we are going to discuss the evolution of international business. The international business had been carried on since times immemorial, but the business had been limited to the international trade until the recent past. The World War II, the post World War II, that means after 1945, Second World War from 1939 to 1945. After 1945, that period witnessed an unexpected expansion of international companies into international or multinational companies. The post 1990s period has given greater fillip to international trade. In fact, the term international business was not in existence before 2 decades. The term international business has emerged from the term international marketing, which in turn emerged from the term export marketing. Evolution of international business can be studied under two heads: international trade to international marketing, international marketing to international business. So these two steps with which we could able to learn the evolution of international business. So now let's take up the first stage, international trade to international marketing. Originally, the producers used to export their products to the nearby countries and gradually extended the exports to far off countries. Gradually, the companies extended their operations beyond trade. Let's take an example. India used to export raw cotton, raw jute, and iron ore during the early 1900s. The massive industrialization in our country that enabled us to export jute products, cotton garments, and steel during 1960s under the India during 1980s could create markets for its products in addition to just exporting. The export marketing efforts include creation of demand for Indian products like textile, electronics, leather products, tea, coffee, etc., arranging for appropriate distribution channels, attractive package, product development, pricing, etc. So this process is true not only with India but also with almost all developed and developing economies. Now, second stage, the multinational companies which are producing products in their home countries and marketing them in various foreign countries before 1980s started locating their plants and other manufacturing facilities in far off lands, that is in host countries. Later, they started producing in one foreign nation and marketing them in other foreign nations. Let's take an example. Unilever established its subsidiary company in India, that is Hindustan Lever Limited. It produces its products in India and markets them in Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Nepal, etc. That is a base in India from which it is marketing the products nearby India. Thus, the scope of international trade is expanded into the international marketing, and international marketing is expanded to the international business. India during 1980s could create the markets for its products in addition to mere exporting. The export marketing efforts include creation of demand for Indian products like textile, electronics, leather products, tea, coffee, etc. Arranging for appropriate distribution channel, attractive package, product development and pricing, etc. So this process is true not only with India, even other foreign nations have developed their own strategies in order to expand their business operations beyond the countries, beyond the economies. History of international business starts with the evolution of human civilization. The integration and growth of economies and societies was the main reason for the first phase of international business and globalization. Dear friends, so let's discuss the very important aspect, very important topic from the examination point of view. The international business environment. As we all know very well, what is business and what are the basic ingredients one required to conduct the business operations. Very well known, 4 M's, right? Men, money, material and machinery. Do you know where does the business get all these resources from? Absolutely, it's environment, right? As we all know that we are living in the society and we use the resources with which we produce number of goods and services, and that will be exchanged with the customers. And at the same time, the business has so many opportunities and threats. So that arises the study of business environment, especially for the companies which are having the business operations in many foreign nations. So let's understand the definition given by David Keith. Business environment, according to him, is the aggregate of all conditions, events and influences that surround and affects business. So therefore, international business environment. Different countries have different factors prevalent in their home environment for the organization, which influences decision making of the business by affecting the use of resources and capabilities. So thus, IBE is unfamiliar, uncontrollable and different from domestic environment. Almost domestic factors which affects the business which are controllable. Therefore, extra vigilance is required to these environmental differences. You should know how these environmental differences which affects the business. So let's understand in detail about the international business environment. International business environment can be classified into two heads. One is internal environmental factors and external environmental factors. So let's say internal environmental factors. So almost these are controllable factors. Some extent the business has control all these internal environmental factors. Number one, organizational structure, production, finance, marketing, HR, research and development. So these are the factors which influence on the business operations. External environmental factors, again external business environmental factors have been classified into two heads. One is external macro environmental factors external micro-environmental factors. So now let's have a look over all those micro-environmental factors. It includes all stakeholders. Stakeholders are nothing but the people or the structure which affects directly to the business operations, includes shareholders, creditors, bankers and financial institutions, competitors, supplies of raw materials, inputs, market intermediaries, customers. Almost. So the business has control all these external micro environmental factors. So now let's study in detail about the external macro environmental factors which affects the business very much. So our focus is to study how these external macro factors which affects the business in detail, which are social and cultural factors, technological factors, economic factors, political factors, international factors, natural factors. As we know that the success and failure of any MNC, multinational company, is based on its ability to deal with all these dynamic macro environmental factors. So now let's discuss in detail about all these external macro factors which affects the business. Firstly, political environment, democracy. Number 2, totalitarianism. Political environment is highly complex, which cannot be expected, and which are also differ from one country to another country. Take the example of China. So there we have communist, and take the example of Western countries. There we have capitalistic society. Take the example, let us have our own example. We have complex economic system we have, that is mixed environmental factor. The political climate does not always remain stationary, which is dynamic. Relationship between countries may change from time to time because of the changing dynamic factors. New economic policies which are initiated by our former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh when he was the finance minister in the year 1991, which aims at transforming India into one of the world's most dynamic economies. What is the risk involved in political environment? As we have studied, as we have gone through that, the political environmental factors which are uncontrollable, which cannot be expected as we expected. So therefore, there is a risk involved by the multinational companies when they are dealing with different political background. Number one, if political conditions are deteriorate or favorable investment climate disappears overnight, MNCs may face many challenges, especially the political challenges. It may be confiscation, expropriation. What is confiscation? What is expropriation? Host country, as we know that for an MNC, one is home country where the business firm has registered. In which countries the business operation is being taken place. So those countries considered as host countries. host country government may coerce directly or indirectly to sell its business. After confiscation or expropriation, the business can either be nationalized or domesticated. If it's nothing but if the host country government has decided to purchase all business operations, multinational companies which are operating in their jurisdiction in their country, or because of so many political disorder, because of economic factors, confiscation might be taken place. That time there is a risk involved. So called the so those years they are doing the business in India. If Indian government is taking suddenly the decision to confiscate all the MNCs which are operating in that particular region, obviously there is a risk involved for the multinational companies which are being operated in our country. So therefore confiscation is one of the challenge. Other political risk, it may be general instability, political instability, ownership control risk, operation risk, transfer risks. Indicators of political instability, it may be social unrest, domestic national attitude of local people, host government policies towards the business, towards the MNCs. How to minimize the political risks? What steps to be taken by MNCs in order to minimize the political risks which are being faced in host countries? To stimulate the local economy, it means contributing something for the local economy where they are having the business operation, to provide the employment opportunities for the localites, sharing ownership, to be good corporate citizen, so like Tata group of companies, Infosys, to be politically neutral, not involved in politics, local politics, especially host country politics, to be followed the neutral policy, political lobbying, to be sensitive to changing political developments, to shift the risks. So these are the steps to be taken by the MNCs in order to minimize the political risks so that are being faced in host countries. So let's move on to the next concept, legal environment. There is no international law which can prescribe acceptable and legal behavior of MNCs. There are only national laws, often in conflict with one another, especially when national politics is involved. National laws of different countries vary from country to country. As we know that MNC is having the business operation in many countries. Take the example of Infosys, it has the business operation in more than 40 countries. 40 legal laws they are being faced, so that MNCs are required to follow the laws of all the countries in which they are having the business operations. The legal systems are classified into common law system, statute law system, theocratic law. Each legal system influences the business differently, directly and indirectly. Application of legal system. Let's take an example, branch versus subsidiary. Every MNC has to take decisions whether to use branches or subsidiaries to carry out their business operations in foreign land. A branch is just an extension of a company, whereas subsidiary is considered a separate legal entity. MNC wisely it has to prefer the subsidiaries. Intellectual property rights, it relates to patents, trademarks, copyrights and trade secrets, and these establish ownership rights over the intellectual property rights. Patents obtained in one country give protection to the inventor within the boundaries of that nation only. But protection beyond the boundaries is difficult task. So therefore, there is the legal system must be understood very clearly where they have the business operations. The inventor has to file an application in such countries as per the laws of those countries. There are only few international agreements which can simplify the procedure to protect the inventor from many challenges. The World Trade Organization is enforcing intellectual property regulations. Counterfeiting. It involves infringement of a patent or trademark, that is unauthorized and illegal copying of the products. To prosecute the counterfeiters, the cooperation from foreign government is very essential, because this type of activities varies from one country to another country. The US Tariffs and Trade Act 1984 is intended to deal with this problem on an international basis. Jurisdiction of laws. There is no international law dealing with the business activities of the international firms. The firms must decide at the time of entering into the contract what legal system will take precedence in resolving any conflicts which arises in the host countries. Social and cultural environment. Socio-cultural environment. Social and cultural factors in various countries of the globe affects the international business operations. International business means, as we know, that it is business operations across the national borders, and now it is across the cultural environment. According to Edward Taylor, culture is that complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, morals, law, custom, and other capabilities and habits acquired by the individuals as the members of the society. So that is a very good definition given by Taylor. Social cultural environment is a set of traditional beliefs and values which are passed and shared among the different societies. This is the shared values passed on from generation to generation. It includes attitude of the people towards the work, attitude of the people towards the wealth, family, marriage, religion, education, ethics, human relations, social responsibilities, etc. Cultures change gradually, picking up the new ideas and dropping old ones. But many of the cultures of the past have been very persistent even today. So that must be known, that must be understood very clearly by the multinational companies where they have the business operations, and self-contained, that impact of a sudden changes has torn them apart, uprooting their people psychologically. So therefore, we need to understand, as an international company, we need to understand the cultural changes which are happening times immemorial. Thus, culture is derived mostly from the climatic conditions of the geographical region and economic conditions of the country. A set of trait passed from generation to generation and shared in a given society, a total way of life and norms, customs, art and values which constitute a culture. So now let's understand what are the main characteristics of culture. Prescriptive, number one. Culture prescribes the kind of behavior considered acceptable in the society. Here the product choices are limited to those which are socially acceptable. Social interactions and creation. Culture is socially shaped. As I told you, it is not stagnant. It cannot exist by itself. It has to be based on social exchanges, social values, culture, norms, and beliefs which help the individual in his decision making process in the international arena. Learned. Culture is acquired through learning but not inherited genetically. It is subjective. Again, it is subjective in nature. It is not objective. It is not scientific. Therefore, people in different culture may have different ideas about the same object. Stable and permanent. Old habits die hard, and people tend to maintain their culture and heritage in spite of a rapidly changing world. Cumulative nature. Each generation adds something to its own to the culture before passing it on to the next generation. Again, it's a dynamic. Culture is stable, permanent, and cumulative in nature. But it is not a it is not static. It is a dynamic. It keeps on changing. So therefore, we adapt ourselves in the new situations and new sources of knowledge. So therefore, these are the seven characteristics of culture. So now let's understand what are the components of socio-cultural environment. The international business organizations are expected to make the products consistent with the culture in which change the culture to change to fit the products. The firms will have to decide whether their products or services will be compatible with a particular culture, or will these need some modifications. Accordingly, the business has to make certain modifications that suit to that particular cultural environment where they have the business operation. Thus, the firm should consider the various components of socio-cultural environment: language, custom, education and religion, attitudes and values, social organization, legal systems, etc. So these are the components of the socio-cultural environment that the international business firms should understand. These socio-cultural environmental factors where they have the business operations. Behavioral factors affecting the business is cross-cultural environment. People from different cultural backgrounds react differently in business environment. Human behavior that affects the business includes employee behavior, customer behavior, behavior of all other stakeholders who are directly and indirectly depends on the multinational companies. Large scale migration of the people has been changing the culture of countries. The behavioral factors affecting the business can be studied under the four heads. One is power distance, uncertainty avoidance or risk taking behavior, individualism or versus collectivism, masculinity and femininity. So let's discuss these behavioral factors which affects the international business firms one by one. Power distance. So impact of socio-cultural environment, impact of consumption, impact of thinking process of the consumers, impact of communication process followed by the particular host country people. So, what are the strategies to be followed in order to deal with these cultural differences by the MNC? Making adjustment wherever necessary, communication, competitive advantage. So, these are the uh, strategies to be followed by the international companies to deal with cultural differences they find in different countries. Economic environment. Economic environment has been fast changing all over the world. The economic reforms which are carried out in few countries are so revolutionary and brought large-scale changes in the economic front of in the economic front of these countries. It may be marketization, privatization, internationalization have been progressing at an amazing speed at the global level. State monopolies of foreign trade and import controls have been drastically reduced. Almost all the countries have been reduced their import controls, drastically reducing their what we call import duties. The economic environment of a country influences the international business to a large extent. Generally, economic policy of host country is largely influenced by the economic agenda of the political party in the power. However, existing international agreements usually pass through even if party in the power is changed. Global economy has undergone a sea change during the last 50 years, and the change is inevitable and revolutionary after 1990s. After India has initiated LPG programs, liberalization, globalization and privatization. The major changes in the international business are emergence of global market and establishment of the World Trade Organization. Capital flow rather than trade products flow across the globe. So now in this technological era, not only the products which are flowing from one country to another country, even though the capital is flowing. Establishment of production facilities in various countries, technological revolution, capitalism succeeded over communism, socialism as a model for overall economy. Take the example of India, in which we have mixed economy, we have been adapted the mixed economic system in which we have the advantages of both capitalism and socialism. Economic system is an organization of institutions established to satisfy the needs of the people across the globe. Economic system of a country explains whether the businesses in the country are privately owned or government owned, or there is a mixed economy. Basically, there are three economic systems we have in the world: capitalism, communism, and mixed economy. Almost all Western countries have been adapted capitalism, private ownership of all the factors of production. There is no interference of the government towards the policies of the companies and programs of their business. Market forces which decides how the resources have to be allocated. Market forces are demand and supply. And laissez-faire policy is being followed by almost all capitalistic countries. Laissez-faire policy is nothing but the economic policy. It's a policy of non-interference of the governments in the business operations. It is left free. Almost all businesses are given freedom to take their own decisions to allocate the resources. No interference of the government. That is a system which is known as capitalism. Germany, Switzerland, and even America. So all these countries they follow capitalistic form of economy. Communism, private ownership of property and property rights to income are completely abolished. Take the example of China. China it has communist country. State owns all the factors of production and distribution. Although China is now understanding the advantages of democracy, so now even the China is also opened up towards the rest of the globe. Mixed economic system, India is the best example for the mixed economic system, which falls between capitalism and communism. Here, the major factors of productions are owned and controlled by the state and other private people. So now let's study the macroeconomic factors which affects the business organizations. National income or per capita income, GDP. Per capita income can be obtained by dividing the national income by population. Level of economic development, economic growth, consumption pattern of the people in the society. Economic system, again there are three systems, whether the economic system is communism, capitalism, or mixed economy, inflation and deflation. Continuous increase in the price of goods and services, that is called inflation. Balance of payment, difference between the value of goods and services which are exported and imported, it's known as balance of payment. Economic transition, level of agricultural and industrial productions, etc. These are the macroeconomic factors which affects the multinational companies. As we know, micro factors which are also affecting the business, almost which are limited, which can be controlled by the domestic nation. Product demand analysis, competition analysis, fiscal policy of the government, monetary policy of the central bank of that particular country, infrastructure facilities, industrial policy, industrial labor, business laws, capital and stock markets, availability of raw materials, all these micro factors which can be some extent, all these micro factors, economic factors which can be controlled by the business, which do not much influence on the international companies. Technological factors, technological and environmental factors. What is technology? J.K. Galbraith defines it as a systematic application of scientific or other organized knowledge to particular task. Technology changes at a faster rate and brings changes in the society, economy, and even politics. Change and then more change is an important feature of technology. In the modern society, it has brought so much changes that it creates what is called future shock. It affects widespread, reaching far beyond the immediate point of technological impact. It affects all walks of life, all countries, and the entire globe at large. Therefore, technology has brought the globe closer. Entire Globe is a single village. Alvin Toffler said, technology feeds on itself. Technology makes more technology possible. Thus, technology is reinforcing. It plays a very important role, especially in the economic development of any country at that matter. So now let's understand one more important concept in the technological factors: technology transfers. Technology and global business are interdependent. MNCs spread technology from advanced countries to the developing economies by establishing their subsidiaries, joint venture, acquisition, merger, okay, and licensing and technological alliances. With these activities, MNCs are transferring technology from their home country to host countries. Technology transfer is mostly concerned with the introduction of existing technology to other countries, preferably to less developed countries through international business operations. Technology that suits one country may not be suitable for the foreign countries. As such, the countries develop appropriate technologies which suit their topographical conditions, climatic conditions, and soil conditions, conditions of infrastructure, etc. Companies take familiar products in the home market to the foreign market that are new there. These may be old in home country, but relatively these are very much new products or services in the host countries. MNCs, when establish manufacturing facilities in host countries, bring technology. That is a technological transfer. Technological knowledge, machinery, equipments, management know-how, marketing skills. So all these which are brought from the MNCs in the host countries. They also train the local employees to cope up with the advanced technology by carrying out various operations, training programs, development programs of the employees in the host countries to cope up with advanced technology being implemented, being introduced by an MNC in host countries, especially in the production area. MNCs always transfer only part of the technology available in the home country to the host country because they wanted to safeguard their interest and profit. So therefore, complete technological know-how cannot be transferred to the host country by the MNCs. That is one of the demerit, especially for the host countries. So dear friends, let's stop today. In the next class, we are going to learn some of the aspects, how the technology is influences, what are the implications of technology in host and home countries. Thank you. Have a good day.